Hello everyone, welcome back to Hank the Cowdog, Book 1. Today we're going to read Chapter 3, The Enormous Monster. I debated for a long time about what to do next. Should I hide out and play it safe, or go on down to the chicken house and get blamed for something that was not my fault? Curiosity got the best of me, and I trotted down to see what was going on. Drover was already there when I arrived, wagging his stub tail and trying to win a few points with his loyal dog routine. I walked up to him and said out of the corner of my mouth, "Thanks for all the help this morning. I really appreciate it." I think he missed the note of irony because he said, and I mean with a straight face, he said, "That's okay, Hanky. It wasn't nothing." Dang right it wasn't nothing. Loper was kneeling over the hens studying the signs. Sally Mae stood nearby looking mighty unhappy about that dead chicken. Loper pushed his hat up to the back of his head and stood up. His eyes went straight to me and Drover. Only when I glanced around, I noticed that Drover had disappeared. It was just me standing in the spotlight. "Hank, if you hadn't been out barking all night, you might have prevented this. Why do you think we keep you around here?" I hung my head and tucked my tail. "Do you have any idea how much money it costs to keep you around here? Seems that every time I turn around, I'm having to buy another 50-pound sack of dog food. That stuff's expensive." Maybe this ain't the time or place to argue the point, but just for the record, let me just say that co-op dog food is the cheapest you can buy. I don't know what they make it out of. Hulls, straw, sawdust, anything the pigs won't eat. And then they throw a little grease to give it some so-called flavor. Tastes like soap, and about half the time it gives me an upset stomach. The point is, I wasn't exactly eating the ranch into bankruptcy. Thought I ought to throw that in to give a more balanced view of things. Loper went on, "We can't afford to keep you around here if you're going to let this sort of thing go on. Everybody has to earn his keep on this ranch. I don't want this to happen again." What did he suppose I wanted? Sometimes I just don't understand. Oh well. He picked up that dead chicken by the feet and carried it down to the trash barrel. I got to admit that I watched this with some interest, since it occurred to me that there wasn't much any of us could do about that dead chicken. The more I thought about chicken dinner, the more my mouth began to water. Couldn't get it off my mind. I like chicken about as well as any other food you can name. Has a nice, clean taste, except for the feathers. Feathers are pretty tasteless, if you ask me. They kind of scratch your throat when they go down. Sure was hungry for chicken, but I decided against it. Wouldn't look too good if I got caught eating a murder victim after all the trouble I'd gotten in that day. I tried to concentrate on the scene of the crime. I studied it again and went over the ground and sniffed it out. Nothing, no clues, no tracks, no scent. Could have been a coyote, a coon, a skunk, a badger, even a fox. But there was one thing I was for sure of. It wouldn't happen again, not while I was in charge of ranch security. Not as long as I could still stand up and fight for this ranch. I saw Drover peek his little head out of the machine shed. "Get some sleep, son," I told him. "Tonight we throw up a double guard and we could get ourselves into some combat." We slept till dark. When the moon came up, we went out on patrol, made several laps around headquarters. Everything was quiet. Off in the distance we heard a few coyotes, but they weren't anywhere close. Must have been, after midnight when Drover said his feet hurt. He wanted to rest for a while. I left him in front of the chicken house and told him to sound the alarm if he saw anything unusual. I went on down and checked things out at the corral, made the circle around the place, and ended up back at the chicken house about a half an hour later. Thought I'd drop in unannounced and check on Drover, make sure he was taking care of business. As I sneaked up, I could see him in the moonlight. His ears were perked. He'd take 2 steps and pounce on something with his front paws. Then he'd take 2 more steps and pounce on something again. He was paying not one lick of attention to the chicken house. A guy could have driven a truck in there, loaded up all the hens, and been gone before Drover ever got the news. I walked up behind him. "What are you doing?" "Ah!" he screeched and headed for the machine shed. I called him back and he came out looking all around with those big old eyes. "Is that you, Hank?" "Uh-huh. What are you doing?" "Me, nothing." It was then that I saw that toad frog jump. "Uh-huh. You were playing with that toad frog on guard duty, right? When we've got a murderer running around loose." He hung his head and went to wagging that stub tail of his. "Hank, I got bored." "Sit down, son, and you need to have a serious talk with me." He sat down and I marched back and forth in front of him. "Drover, I'm really disappointed in you. When you come to this ranch, you said you wanted to be a cowdog. I had misgivings at the time. I mean, you didn't look like a cowdog, but I took you on anyway, and I tried to teach you the business. Can you imagine how it breaks my heart to come up here and find you playing with a dadgum toad frog?" His head sank lower and lower, and he started to sniffle. "If you had gone into any other line of work, playing with a frog would have been all right, but a cowdog is something special. You might say we're in the elite. We have to be stronger and braver and tougher than any breed of dog in the world. It's a special calling, Drover. It ain't for the common run-of-the-mill mutts." He started crying. "Drover, there's only one thing that keeps you from being a good cow dog." "What is it, Hank?" "You're worthless." "Oh, no," he squalled. "Don't say that. It hurts too much." "But it's true. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to teach you. I've tried to be a good example." "I know, but it hasn't worked. You're just as worthless today as you were the first time I saw you." "You're just a chicken-hearted little mutt is what you are, and I don't think you ever will make it as a cowdog." "Yes, I will, Hank. I just need some time." "Nope. Duty's duty. I got no choice but to let you go." He broke down and sobbed. "Hank, I got no place to go, no friends and no family. Nobody wants a chicken-hearted little mutt. Give me 3 more chances, please." "Can't do it, Drover. Sorry." 2 more? "Nope." 1 more? I paced back and forth. It was one of the most difficult decisions of my career, and I didn't want to rush into it. "All right, 1 more choice, but 1 more dumb stunt and you're finished, and I mean forever. Now dry your eyes, shape up, pay attention to your business, and concentrate on being unworthless." "Okay, Hank." And he started jumping up and down and going around in circles. "You won't be sorry. No more frogs for me. No, sir. I'll guard that chicken house and give my life if necessary." "That's the spirit. I'm going to make the rounds again. If you see anything suspicious, just give me a holler." I started off on my rounds and left him sitting in front of the chicken house door. I was down at the feed room checking on the coons when I heard him sound the alarm. I turned on my incredible speed and went tearing up the hill. I have several speeds, don't you know? Slow, normal, and incredible. I saved the last one back for special emergencies. When I turned on the incredible speed, I appeared a streak as a color moving across the ground. Anything that gets in my way is knocked aside, often destroyed. And I'm not talking about little stuff either. I mean trees and posts and rocks and you name it. As I streaked up the hill, I met Drover. "Hank, I seen him. He's up there. Oh my gosh." I had to slow down. Give me a description. Oh, he's big, Hank. I mean big, huge, enormous. He's black and white, gigantic tail that whisks through the air, long pointed tongue that flicks out at you. He's got horns that are growing out of his head. Good grief, I whispered. What is it? It's a monster, Hank. A genuine monster. I stopped to think it over. I'd never tangled with a monster before. You think I can whip him? I don't know, Hank, but if anybody can, that would be you. You're right. Okay, here's the plan. I'll go in the first wave, make the first contact. We'll hold you in reserve. If I holler for help, you come running. Get there and with them teeth of yours and bite something. Got it? I got it, Hank. I took a deep breath and drove her. If I don't come back from this one, you'll have to go on alone. Take care of the ranch and be brave. It was kind of a touching moment, me and Drover standing there in the moonlight just before this battle. I said goodbye and loped up the hill. I stopped and peered into the gloom. At first, I couldn't see anything, but then my eyes fell on a huge shadowy thing right in front of the chicken house door. Drover hadn't exaggerated. It was a horned monster, all right, and he was fixing to bust down the door and start killing chickens. I didn't have a moment to waste. It was now or never, him or me, glory or death. I bared my fangs and attacked. First contact was made only a matter of seconds after I launched the attack. The monster must have heard me coming because he kicked the tar out of me and sent me rolling. I leaped up and charged at him again. This time I made it through, sank my teeth into him and gave him a ferocious bite. He slung me around, but I hung on tight. He was big, all right, big as a house. I figured he stood 14 feet tall at the shoulders and had 3 eyes and a long forked tongue and a tail with deadly stingers on the end. Also horns that glowed in the dark and tusks. Did I mention that? Big, long tusks growing out of the side of his mouth, the kind that could dip a dog to shreds. Big, green, slobbery junk dripping out of the mouth, and eyes were red. It was a fight to the death. Come on, Drover, attack! I set up a howl to alert the house. I would need all the help I could get. I'll give Drover credit. He came tearing out of the weeds, yapping at the top of his lungs, and got there within 3 feet of that monster before he veered off and headed for the machine shed. The lights came on in the house, the door slammed, and I heard Loper running down the hill towards me. I hoped he had a gun. I was getting beat up and I was tired. I wasn't sure I could keep the fight much longer. The gun exploded, lit up the night. The monster ran. I started after him, ready to give him a coup de grace, as they say, but Loper called me back. I figured he didn't want to risk losing the head of ranch security, which seemed pretty sensible to me. So I went back to him, limping on all 4 legs at once because they all hurt, and so did everything else. Wagging my tail, I went up to him, ready for my reward. I didn't get a reward, though. To make a long story short, Drover had sent me into the battle with a milk cow, and I got cursed for it. I thought very seriously about terminating Drover. I mean his life, not his job. But I couldn't find him in the machine shed, so I dragged my battered carcass down to the gas tank and curled up on my gunny sack bed. I could have sworn that was a monster. And here is the picture of the cow that he thought was a monster. Tomorrow we're going to learn about a new character. It's exciting. And he has never been heard from or seen. So tune in tomorrow for the new character. Bye.